After the fire, I no longer stopped Jason Johnson from saving Cecilia Johnson. I could only watch helplessly as my Jason rushed into the flames, only to be swallowed by the blaze. In my previous life, on the day of my wedding with Jason, a fire suddenly broke out at the hotel. Jason and I managed to escape in time, but Cecilia, who had no blood relation to him, was trapped inside. The fire was too intense, and as Jason was about to rush into the burning building to save her, I did everything I could to stop him. Eventually, the fire was successfully extinguished, but nothing remained of Cecilia, not even her bones. Jason said he didn't blame me, but on our third wedding anniversary, he bought 2 diving tickets for me and our son. 100 meters underwater, his face contorted with rage as he pulled out our oxygen tubes. You prevented me from saving Cecilia back then, so you should pay with your own life. I cried that our son was innocent, but he turned and left without looking back. My son and I died from suffocation, and only after death did I learn the truth. My Jason had been deeply in love with Cecilia, despite their lack of blood relation. He harbored hatred toward me for stopping him from saving her, believing I had caused him to lose the person he truly loved. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the fire. 1. I was awakened by thick smoke, immediately realizing I had been reborn. I frantically searched for Jason and found him trying to rush in to rescue Cecilia, who had no blood relation to him. Jason. I called his name. He glanced at me with displeasure while continuing his attempts to break down the door. Don't try to stop me. Even though Cecilia and I aren't related by blood, she calls me uncle, so I must look after her. If you want to leave, then go, but I'm not leaving. If you're not going to help, don't get in my way. In this life, instead of stopping him, I promptly responded. Fine. Jason's face instantly showed shock. His body froze momentarily before he quickly regained his composure and continued forcing the door open. Without further hesitation, I rushed out immediately. Half an hour later, Jason emerged from the burning building carrying Cecilia. I keenly noticed his limping gait and the blood-soaked left knee of his pants. He didn't even glance at me before boarding the ambulance with Cecilia. In my previous life, a fire suddenly broke out at the hotel on my wedding day with Jason. The flames were fierce, yet Jason was determined to rush into the fire to save Cecilia. I tried repeatedly to stop him and eventually succeeded. Cecilia ultimately perished in the fire. Jason harbored intense hatred toward me, which extended to the child I bore him. On our third wedding anniversary, which was also the third anniversary of Cecilia's death, he tricked me and our son into going diving, then secretly removed our oxygen tubes. I begged him desperately to spare our son, offering my own life in exchange. However, he merely watched coldly as we both suffocated to death. It was on that day I discovered he had always secretly loved Cecilia, despite their lack of blood relation. In this life, when I saw him willing to risk his own safety to rush into danger to save her, I chose to let him go. That same day, I submitted a volunteer teaching application to my school. Harold's voice revealed his surprise. Isabel Lincoln, you just got married, and the teaching commitment is at least 3 years. Are you sure about this? Without any hesitation, I replied. Absolutely. I'll report to the new school in 7 days. In this life, I was determined to leave this place and let the two of them have their wish. 2. My injuries were minor, and the wounds were quickly treated. Cecilia had not yet regained consciousness, and Jason, completely disregarding his own injuries, insisted on personally staying by her side to care for her. Even the doctor couldn't bear to watch and asked me, as his fiancée, to talk some sense into him. I looked at his knee and noticed it had stopped bleeding, but his knees were bent at completely different angles. The injured side seemed dislocated. Your leg injury is serious. Why don't you see a doctor first, and I'll stay here to watch over Cecilia, I suggested. He glared at me and said impatiently, I'm a grown man. This little injury is nothing. Besides, if she wakes up and doesn't see me, she'll start crying again. I couldn't help but marvel at this. Cecilia was already 20 years old, no longer a little girl in the crying phase. She liked to stick close to Jason, constantly calling him Uncle Jason all day long. Even after Jason and I had married, she showed no sense of boundaries and often deliberately tried to drive a wedge between us. We had argued about this many times, and each time Jason would say I was narrow-minded, making too much of an issue with a young girl. He accused me of having a dirty mind, slandering the pure uncle-niece relationship between him and Cecilia. He claimed that he had watched Cecilia grow up, and she was just used to depending on him. Thinking of all this, I stopped trying to persuade him to get his injured leg examined. Jason looked at me with a hint of impatience and said in an unfriendly tone, "Your wound has been treated, so why are you still standing here? Hurry back and make some porridge for Cecilia. She'll definitely be hungry when she wakes up. Make her favorite clam porridge, remember to add green onions, and go easy on the salt, she has wounds, so the flavor can't be too strong." I looked at him helplessly. "You order something instead. I'm injured, tired, and don't want to run around anymore." Jason frowned and was about to say something when Cecilia, lying on the hospital bed, woke up. She weakly called out Uncle Jason, and he immediately limped to her side. "Cecilia, you're finally awake. Do you know how scared Uncle Jason was? You've been with me since you were 7, and I've put so much effort into raising you into a young lady. If anything had really happened to you today, how could Uncle Jason go on living?" Cecilia's eyes reddened as she lay in the hospital bed. "Uncle Jason, don't cry anymore. How could Cecilia bear to leave you?" Cecilia vowed on her 18th birthday that she would always stay by Uncle Jason's side. "Uncle Jason, even though you never understand what Cecilia is thinking, you just need to know that Cecilia won't leave you." Jason quickly grabbed her hand and pressed it against his cheek. I understand everything. It's just that in this life. But Cecilia, don't worry. Uncle Jason will never abandon you, no matter who tries to stop me." As he said this, he glanced at me briefly, then continued in a stern voice. "Isabel, hurry home and make porridge for Cecilia. Why can't you be as sensible as Cecilia and give me some peace of mind?" "Uncle Jason," Cecilia called out in a coquettish tone, then gently covered Jason's mouth with her hand. "Uncle Jason shouldn't talk to Aunt Isabel like that. If Aunt Isabel doesn't want to make porridge for Cecilia, then forget it. It doesn't matter if Cecilia goes hungry. I just hope Uncle Jason and Aunt Isabel won't argue because of me anymore." Jason couldn't stand to see her teary-eyed, pitiful expression. His face immediately darkened, and he shouted at me furiously. "Isabel, can't you understand what I'm saying? I'm telling you clearly, if you don't make this porridge today, then we might as well not have our wedding ceremony next week. This is the wedding you've been dreaming about for 5 years. You really need to think carefully about this. In my previous life, I would have given in to him after such a threat. But now, I just looked at him calmly and said in a flat tone, 'Fine, then let's not have it.'